Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. And, of course, Audie is with us today. He's been in a mood. The weather is changing, and that never sits well with him. He doesn't like it when it gets hot. He doesn't like it when it gets cold. He just doesn't like change. So even though he prefers warm weather to cool weather, he won't be any happier in a few months when spring is right around the corner, because it's that whole I hate change thing. So do you want to turn around and say hi? Yeah. Show them your face. Come here. No. I'll let you go as soon as they get to see your face. Okay. There you go. Anyway, he's been silly kitty lately. Okay, yellow is in the earrings once again for Catherine, for Lex's mom, for everybody who is battling cancer, and we are all wishing you the best possible outcome. So, no scarf today, and I'm going to show you why before we get into the video. Because I have a new scarf. Now, this is a beautiful, thick wool scarf, so I'm not keeping it on for very long. But still, here you go. This is the official Hamilton tartan. Now, keep in mind that I don't think this tartan was actually registered anywhere with anybody until the very early 20th century. There's a lot of mystique and misinformation about Scots tartans. The fact is that for a long time, the Scots were using patterns like this rather willy-nilly. It didn't mean anything, the color combinations you used. And in fact, there are patterns very similar to these that show up in ancient China. So, is this uniquely Scottish? No, the Chinese had it too. Are these particular tartan designs historically associated with any one particular family over another? No. That is just something that gained popular awareness in the 18th century, and then gradually in the 19th century became more of a thing. And as I say, this one, and do keep in mind, for most of the 20th century, my last name, Hamilton, was among the top 30 surnames in Scotland, so not an uncommon name. And this one was not actually registered until the early 20th century, 1903, I think. And this was a gift from Anne Campbell, and she's the one who is giving us our Scots Gaelics lessons. Now, there was more to this, by the way. Let me show you. Look at this little bugger. This is an adorable little Scotty keyring, and I have to say, it's probably not going to remain a keyring. I am probably going to do something to turn this into a little fabric brooch, which, by the way, is very easy to do if you have tiny, rare earth magnets. They're very powerful little magnets. Oh, and I keep those because if I want to turn something into a brooch, I'd rather not use a pin and stick it through something I really like. So magnets will work. And that may be what happens to this. Audie made out as well. Audie got cat treats from Scotland. I'm telling him this. I'm showing him the package. It's like, do you know how far that came from? And he's just saying, open those treats and give me some. But still. So thank you. And by the way, there was a brooch with this as well. And it was on my desk until Audie took over my desk this morning. It will turn up. I think he knocked it under the computer. So I'm going to have to pick up, the laptop and dig around under there and see if he shoved it in there. I'm pretty sure that's what happened to it, because he he's like a magpie. You give him something shiny, he's very, very happy to play with it. And I'm pretty sure he played it right under the computer. But I did want to show you something interesting. This is not the only Hamilton tartan scarf I have. This is my former Hamilton tartan scarf. Notice there are some differences. For one thing, this is what it's supposed to look like, navy blue, red, and white. This one is black, red, and white. And this one, let me just show you, because this is one of the reasons it is so disappointing. Note that fabric tag. This is a Pendleton scarf. So this is a very Chi-Chi brand. And I have never liked it. It is stiff and scratchy, and it's not as stiff and scratchy as it once was, because I do know how to soften wool, but I'd have to spend a lot more time softening it to get it to the quality of this one. And of course, it's not the right color, and so it was always something of a disappointment. But now I have one that is the right color, that is soft and is pretty. And even though this one doesn't have the cachet of that Pendleton label, my new favorite, I'm not going to get rid of the old one. This is small, much smaller than the one Anne sent me, but I think we are looking at about, I'm guessing maybe 4 feet by 1 foot. Wrong color, but I could still get myself a pattern and make a hat out of this, and I might well do that. But regardless, I'm not getting rid of it. It's a nice piece of wool. Maybe I'll make a little scarf for Audie. Do you want to come back in my lap? It's okay. They know you're here. All right, I'm going to give him a chance to crawl back into my lap. We're going to take a look at the intro, and we'll be right back. So there is another reason that I'm not wearing anything yellow today. Not just I wanted to show off a red scarf, but I thought a red shirt would help. As always, the earrings, and this is probably going to be my default because it's so easy to do, and I don't have to worry about excluding a large piece of my rather limited wardrobe, because I am not a maximalist when it comes to clothing. So my wardrobe is rather limited. It's amazing I have as much yellow in it as I actually do. Well, actually it isn't. I like bright colors. So yeah. All right. I'm a sucker for bright colors. Anyway, there's a reason for this. And that's because I started rambling on about fast fashion yesterday. And in yesterday's video, someone had written a comment in, and this is someone who is a Walmart shopper. And she's very clear about this. She shops at Walmart because that's what she can afford. And I feel, given the fire that fast fashion comes under from people who can afford to shop in better places, from influencers who are getting free clothing from fancy shops. It's like, it's all well and good for someone who has a closet full of silks and satins from the shops they are pimping on their TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, to say, oh, no, fast fashion is terrible for the environment. Like, yeah, well, you can afford better clothing. You can afford to pay more. Well, it's not necessarily better clothing. We're going to get into that. You can afford to pay more for your clothing. You can afford more expensive clothing. You are not going to be hurt if fast fashion is not available. That is absolutely not true for most of us. For most of us, fast fashion is how we get from one week to the next, period. Not everybody has the ability to go out and buy boatloads of expensive clothing. Sorry. And I've spoken about this before. I get sick to death of overprivileged ivory tower people preaching to everybody else about how we have to deprive ourselves and we have to suffer because they have some crazy notion that if Mary Jones down the street stops buying her children's clothing at Walmart because that is all she can afford, that somehow that is going to resolve a century of industrial pollution. It's not. It's not. I don't like the emotional blackmail of making people feel guilty for buying the things they can afford and for even buying a few luxuries here and there simply because they're imported from China and nobody is really 100% certain about the working conditions in China. Well, you know what? The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire took place in New York, not in Beijing. So, we need to get off our high horse about this. Anyway, back to the comment. And I'm sorry for this because it gets under my skin when people who have a world of options start preaching to people who have very few options and saying, well, just because you can't afford what I have, do without, peasant. No, not okay. So I wanted to continue a little with fast fashion because, yes, some of us are in the fast fashion loop because we can't afford to get out of it. Others are in the fast fashion loop because they are choosing it. That would be me. The reason I wore this shirt, remember I started off saying this shirt, which is, it's a Henley top, which is, just a second, I'm going to move the camera out so you can see this. So, okay. The reason I did a transition cut is because moving the camera out like that can be very jarring visually, and I don't want to subject you to that. So, here you go. It's a Henley top. We've got 3 working buttons and then 2 non-working buttons. And it has short sleeves. They're actually very short sleeves. Cap sleeves, I would say. They are not built into the bodice of the blouse, which many short sleeves like this are. 100% linen, $20 from Walmart. My only regret about this shirt is that I was only able to get one. They had sold out on the other colors. And that's it. That is my only regret. Now I'm going to change the camera angle back. I like this. It has everything I want. It's linen, one of my favorite fabrics, and linen has been one of my favorite fabrics, I've mentioned this before, since 2020 because of the antibacterial properties of linen. And I find myself out in the community with all kinds of people, not all of whom have what I would consider to be laudable hygiene. You just never know what you're going to pick up out in the world. So a little extra in terms of antibacterial, I'm all for it. And linen is a natural fabric. Even though I do think that linen does involve some processing methods that are probably not all that environmentally friendly, I don't think they're as destructive as many other fabrics, so I'm good with linen. Linen is fine. Plant-based fiber, I'm cool with it. Now, one of the reasons that I look at something like this and say, yeah, for $20, that kind of puts it on the moderate to expensive side over at Walmart. But in terms of a nice linen top that is a little more interesting than just a plain old t-shirt, and also I have this wonderful bright orangey red color, which I simply do not have elsewhere in my wardrobe outside of my scarves. So, there's that too. I have a lot of scarves that'll go with this. This is going to really work for me. My regret, as I say, only that I couldn't get more. But when I talk about the workhorses in my wardrobe, there is no way I can ever have that conversation without mentioning the 2 Henley shirts I got from Walmart, $8.88. And this is 5 years ago. They are still going strong. I've replaced the buttons on them recently. It's like I like them so much that when I wanted a little bit of a change, I'm not getting rid of them, but I'm going to upgrade them a little, which I only do for things I really adore. Is that fast fashion? Is it fast fashion if I've gotten 5 years worth of use out of them? And the cost per wear is like less than a penny at this point. I'm like way less than a penny, because they started off at that fast fashion price point of $8.88. And even 5 years ago, that was a bargain. Why should I feel guilty about this? Obviously, I don't know where they were made. It's likely they were made in China. Do I know anything about the working conditions? No, I do not. Even if I did know about the conditions in the factory, would I know about the conditions in the factory that produced the thread, produced the buttons, produced the actual fabric? No. All the information I could get, and this is even pushing it, would be information on the factory that stitched the garment together. Beyond that, further back in the supply chain, totally opaque to me. Probably totally opaque to Walmart as well. So, am I supposed to make myself crazy and try to find information that is just not available to me? Am I supposed to not buy something I want and I like? And like I say, history has shown I will get 5 years worth of use out of it simply because I don't have this information? No. I can only tend to my own little corner of the universe. And that is, I buy as responsibly as I can. So I will not knowingly buy a garment that was made in a country that has human rights violations left, right, and sideways. The U.S. ordinarily doesn't import from those countries, so I'm usually pretty safe about that. Am I going to buy something that I consider using standards I can obtain and employ in the process? Am I going to buy something that I believe is harmful to the environment? For example, over-processed polyesters. Believe me, in the past, because as you all know, I was a young person in the 60s, I was a teenager in the 60s, and then a young adult in the 70s, and boy, the 1970s, that was the polyester decade. We elevated polyester to an art form. Did I have polyester clothes? Oh, yes, I did. So did everyone else. That stuff is brutal on the environment. I don't even think it biodegrades. I think it's like the cockroaches. World War III will come, and those polyester bell-bottom pants are still going to be in a landfill somewhere. I will avoid that if I can. Am I willing to make a full-time job of researching every scrap of clothing I buy? No, I am not. and I shouldn't be expected to. And even if I did, could my one purchase of, for example, a $20 linen shirt, as opposed to a $20 polyester shirt, is that going to have an impact on the environment? No, it is not. Now, there are those who will say, but it's cumulative, we all have to do it. Yeah, but we're not all doing it. That's the thing. We are not all doing it. Everybody has to play for that sort of thing to work. And if I alone, as an older person without a 9-to-5 job, if I don't have the time for this, please don't tell me that the average working Joe or Jane on the street who is juggling full-time employment and raising their kids as best they can, etc., has enough time to do this prior to going out and buying a pair of socks for Junior. No, it's craziness. It's just when you start to realize the insanity of what they are dumping on us, you realize it's absolutely untenable. We can't meet their expectations. The only reason they can meet their own expectations, assuming they do, and I would say that our beloved Prince Sock Puppet, who runs around to ecology conventions in private jets, is not walking the talk. So, do we really expect people who in less affluent circumstances to be doing it? I don't think so. As I say, the influencers, it's all well and good for them to say, stick with natural fabrics, because they can afford to buy $70, $80 t-shirts. Can Joe or Jane on the street afford to buy $70 t-shirts for each one of their 3 kids in school, and with each one of those children needing at least half a dozen t-shirts? And good Lord, just do the math. No, of course not. And also, the influencers are being sponsored by these fancier labels. They're sponsoring the videos. They are offering the influencers free products in exchange for shout outs. So yeah, that's where it's all at. And if we were getting free products in exchange for lauding these wonderful eco-friendly brands, well, maybe we would, because they'd be giving our kids a dozen $70 t-shirts. But they're not. We have to buy them. So I think it's really significant for us to keep in mind that we are largely driven by the simple economics of the situation. And for that small percentage of us who are not, for whatever reason, I am not in the classical sense. I can afford to pay more than $20 for a shirt. On the other hand, remember my mother on my shoulder? I won't if I don't have to. And if I do, it's because I'm convinced I'm going to get more use out of that more expensive product, because that's how the economics drive me. It's like, I'm looking for a good bargain, but I'm looking at the bargain in terms of more than just that initial price point. Also, I have the time and the energy, limited though my energy may be this late in my lifetime, I have the time and the energy to do the necessary care and upkeep of more delicate fabrics. I can get wool sweaters because I'm prepared to hand wash them. And if hand washing fails, I am prepared to take them off to a dry cleaner. I do that only with great reluctance, because that too is a very non-environmentally friendly process. And in this case, I've said this environmental argument doesn't wash with me for so many reasons, but in particular, my objection is, if it's not good for the environment, is it good for me when I put that sweater on my body? And I have to say, no, I think the answer to that one is pretty much a resounding no. So I guess the bottom line is, I benefit from fast fashion. And I was thinking about this after yesterday's video, all of the conflicts in my head. And I rolled it around and I read back what those of you had commented about this. That one comment about, I shop at Walmart because this is where I can afford to shop. Oh, that was like a sharp kick in the ribs. And the reason for that is, ultimately, is that not the bottom line? Is fast fashion not worthwhile and valuable if it puts items into the hands of people who otherwise could not afford it? If they were paying the same kinds of prices that we were paying back in the 60s and 70s, and remember, clothing was a lot more expensive then. So if we adjust for inflation, even a t-shirt would be significantly expensive. If they had to choose between getting their kids new clothes and putting food on the table, no, I don't want to go back to those days. I like that people can eat and have clothing. This is a good thing. And I'm not interested in turning the clock back. And yes, I do bemoan the lack of quality in clothing. Sure, everyone does. We always regret what we lost. But would I trade off the gains we have made in order to get that back? No. And think about this. When you start looking at these influencers and these, socially la-la people who are all telling us what to do, what in effect they are saying to us is that we must sacrifice, and in some cases it's the food on our table, in order to buy the more expensive things that will make them feel happy because we're catering to their little cause du jour, whatever that may be. Is it the environment? Is it chemical sensitivity? Is it working conditions somewhere that may or may not be taking place? And I stress that because we don't know. We can't know. No. What kind of people will say, I favor this cause and I want you to go hungry to support it. I want your children to do without for the sake of my cause. It's like, oh Lord, there's a special place in hell for people like that. Truly there is. So the more I look at things like fast fashion and the criticism of fast fashion, the more I think I'm just going to go buy stuff at Walmart just to say, up yours, to people who are actually proposing that we all do without to assuage their guilty consciences, because quite frankly, I don't have private jets. I'm not running around in a fleet of SUVs. I'm not doing the kind of damage to the environment that they're doing in their mega mansions and their vacations off here, there, and everywhere else. And by the way, I'm not trying to single out anyone in particular, although I know for those of you who follow the Just Chattin' series, you may think I am. No. Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet are not the only hypocrites out there who have millions of dollars but expect us to sacrifice to make up for the damage they do to the environment. They're not alone in this. The world is full of them. And in particular, social media influencers Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of these people. Oh, what a bug I get up on my butt about that. Shea Whitney, let me just say this. You know, I'm always talking about these social media influencer fashionistas. Well, Shea Whitney is one I like because I don't follow a lot of her videos, but I do tune in occasionally. And the reason why is because this is a woman who is advocating, buy it on Amazon, get it at Walmart. And quite frankly, she looks awfully well put together for somebody who is getting her clothing at Walmart and Amazon. And I have to say, what a refreshing change. I love seeing an influencer who is saying Walmart instead of Balenciaga. Yeah. So thank you, Shea Whitney, for just bringing a little bit of common sense into that whole just social media influencer realm. I like that. So, where am I now? Having gotten your feedback and having had 24 hours to process this. Oh, and I've pretty much been processing it nonstop because a very bad cat kept waking me up during the night and I would have trouble falling back to sleep. He was waking me up because he wanted cuddle. And, you know, as another one of our commenters said, what do you do when they just want love? You can't shove them away. No, of course not. And he's satisfied just by being able to sleep next to me. But every now and then something happens, a loud motorcycle on the street or whatever, and it will jostle him awake and he'll remember that he's not actively getting cuddle. So he has to crawl on my head, wake me up and get that cuddle. So I certainly did spend a lot of time thinking about this, and I've decided that I am not opposed to fast fashion. I shop fast fashion outlets. This came from Walmart. A lot of my other things have come from places like H&M. That's another one of my favorites because I can get good stuff there. Quince, another one that has really good prices. But am I going to buy anything they are selling? No. I am going to shop around. I'm going to look for what I want. I'm going to do my best to get quality. But am I going to turn up my nose to Walmart when I can get a linen shirt there for $20? No. Oh, and nice bright red too. Not at all. I am going to continue to shop at Walmart, at H&M, at wherever I'm going to get the best deals, because it's also the places where I'm getting the best value. Truck. So that's the sort of thing that keeps them awake at night. It's amazing. I've lived in cities, and right now I am living in what anybody would have to consider the country. My neighbor, 2 doors down, is a farmer, is a Mennonite farmer, not just an ordinary farmer. No, a Mennonite farmer in a straw hat with a wife in a bonnet. Yeah, I'm in the country, and you hear how noisy it is here. It's like, oh, the city is looking good to me. Anyway, where was I? I have recaptured my train of thought. It did take a while. Okay, it's really a question of looking at the value of fast fashion. And it's beyond just the value I get from being able to cherry pick. And granted, I am cherry picking. Being able to cherry pick the fast fashion offerings to find the few items that I feel will be of good value to me, that will fit in with what I'm looking for. But there's value beyond that, because if fast fashion is putting more stuff in the hands of more people, particularly people who do not have all of the options that the high-paid influencers have, well, how can you say there's no value in that? There's tremendous value in that. And if your criteria about what is valuable is limited to what is valuable for you personally, like I said, there's a special place in hell for you. So we need to look at what is doing the most good for the most people. And right now, it's fast fashion. So I have gone from being sort of pro-fast fashion, as I was, back in the day when fast fashion first came out, and I was enjoying the luxury of getting more clothing for less money, to being anti-fast fashion when I started to consider the reduction in quality and the sort of sameness of fast fashion. Because even though there's a lot of options, most of it's very much the same, very cookie cutter. I don't like that. To coming full circle, and now I'm looking at this saying, yeah, it's a good thing. And if the fashionista influencers don't like it, well, they can start coming up with solutions. And these should be solutions that benefit everyone and not just themselves. All right, that is, I guess, in conclusion, my take on fast fashion. I've come full circle. I am in favor of it. How can I not be, knowing the positive impact it has on the lives of people who need it most? All right, I want to touch on the giveaways, because I forgot to mention this yesterday when I talked about the giveaways we're starting. I will provide all of you with alternatives to going to the Facebook page. I started saying that, distracted myself, and never finished the thought. I'm not on Facebook myself. I have a Facebook account. I don't know how it works. I have to go to Colleen and say, how do I work this? Seriously. So, how could I eliminate people who are not on Facebook? Oh, wouldn't that be hypocritical of me? I'm going to make sure you have an email address so you can contact the Sunnis Angels via email in order to participate in the giveaways. They have done this in the past. They are these are sweethearts. They are very, very willing to go out of their way to make sure everyone is accommodated. So I would say, if you can go over to their Facebook page, please do. If you can't, we will have alternatives available to you. All right. And when the giveaways are actually beginning officially, when they are announced, I'll make sure the information is available. Okay. That's what I have for you today. Audie is outside. I did have to let him out because he was getting fussy. And he didn't go very far. He's sleeping on the porch railing. So he's like 2 feet from the front door. So no real traveling right now. So he's still around. We're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. By the way, I don't say this often enough. Thank you all so much for being here, for going through these crazy little mental gymnastics with me as I try to navigate my way through a world that's I'm starting to feel out of touch with things a little these days. The older I get, the more I understand my grandmother, who went from no cars, period, no cars, to a man landing on the moon. Yeah, I'm starting to feel like things are slipping through my fingers. So thank you for coming on this journey with me. All right. I will see you all next time. We're going to look at a slideshow on the way out. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.